Hi everyone, this is Katy Groves, and if you're triggered by the sound of birds chirping, you probably shouldn't watch this video. I'm recording this outside because there was a ton of background noise going on in my apartment complex that was way too distracting and triggering to make this video there, but it's not like this place is all that quiet either, so I apologize if it's disruptive, and I hope that people will take care of themselves in deciding whether or not to watch this video. So in this video, I'm going to be addressing survivors of trauma-based mind control and ritual abuse and human trafficking in general. Basically, any survivors of exploitation who are looking to start speaking out about their experiences. I myself am a survivor of Monarch mind control, CIA child trafficking, and Satanic ritual abuse. I've been speaking out about my experiences for almost a year online, and I just felt like making this video to try to help anyone who's thinking about speaking out as well. I'm going to speak from my perspective and try not to give anyone advice, but say things that I think could be helpful nonetheless. So, when I first decided it was time for me to speak out online, I had a lot of things to consider. One of the first things I had to consider was who my audience was, how much I wanted to share, and on what level I wanted to open myself up to the threat of accessing. One of the hardest things for me has been concealing certain switches and concealing certain emotions so that I do not open myself up to being reprogrammed. And I know that this is not something that every survivor of exploitation faces the risk of, but it's definitely a risk for survivors of trauma-based mind control and something that I have had to deal with. One of the most basic things I had to consider also was simply in what media format I wanted to speak out, whether I wanted to write or make videos. At first, I thought that I kind of had to write. For some reason, I really felt like that was something I had to do. But it became very clear to me when I tried to write out my story in order to help others that I was not capable of writing my thoughts down on paper in a coherent way. For me, I get too triggered when I go to put stuff down on paper. It's much easier for me to just talk. And that doesn't mean that no forethought goes into what I say. I think a lot about what I'm going to say, oftentimes before I say it. But it's much easier for me to just turn the camera on and just start speaking. So I decided that even though I would rather have been able to write and do a blog, that a vlog was the right medium for me. I then thought about whether or not I wanted to post on YouTube or whether I wanted to post on another site. This was challenging for me to make this decision too, because I have some understanding of what kind of company YouTube is and really did not want to be a part of it. But I also felt like I was going to reach the most people through YouTube. I felt like this is the first place that most survivors are going to look for videos about the stuff I grew up in, and that I should try to make my videos as accessible to people as possible. I also had familiarity using YouTube and had posted occasionally while I was still under mind control as a teenager on YouTube, and so I felt pretty comfortable using the site in that way. And I ended up deciding that on an intuitive level, YouTube was the right thing for me. So that's why I chose this website. But I think that it was definitely a good thing that I spent time considering it and understanding that I had options. This is not the only option for making videos and posting them online, and I don't want survivors who are considering speaking out to think that it is. So once I decided to make a YouTube channel, I had to consider whether or not to use my real name. This was difficult for me also, but I decided to go ahead and use my real name for the following reasons. The primary one was that I did not want people to think that I was afraid to say my name. I knew that my abusers would know what I was doing and would know who I was, and it wasn't like I'd be hiding from them. I also knew that because I'm part of a program for victims of domestic violence and human trafficking that enables me to have a confidential address in another city, that it would be somewhat difficult for people to find out where I was unless they happened to be there in that moment or connected to the very people that had exploited me. And like I said, if they were connected to the people who exploited me, then, well, they were going to know where I was anyway. So for me, I felt like because of that, I was safer from people in the public who might want to do me harm, and that it was okay to use my name. That doesn't mean there's no risk there. I just decided that it was worth it to me to show people my face and my name, and that I was not afraid to be open about who I am. The next reason, which is probably tied with that one on biggest reasons, was that I wanted people I grew up with to be able to find me. I wanted people I grew up with who were being victimized, I should specify, to be able to find that I'm doing this, to be able to find my contact, and to be able to contact me if need be. Now, this is not something that has happened yet, to my knowledge. Nobody, to my knowledge, who I grew up with, who is being victimized in MK has contacted me. But I wanted to leave open that possibility. I have family members who I have some hope in, who I wanted to be able to find what I'm doing and to contact me. And lastly, I didn't just want to show people that I wasn't afraid. I wanted some credibility in, if nothing else, than simply knowing that I'm not hiding, that I stand by everything I say. So I decided to use my real name, and I decided to post on YouTube. And then I had to decide exactly what kind of content I wanted to make. The main thing that I wanted to do was to help survivors deprogram themselves. I was trained as a trauma-based mind control programmer for the elite for most of my childhood. My father was a programmer with some prominent positions in their hierarchy, and he made me his protege, and he trained me very well. Because of this, I gained a lot of understanding of my situation that not all survivors have. And I felt that this was one of the most important things that I had to give. And not only that, but I kind of felt that it was my karma to help survivors deprogram, as I had been forced to program so many people as a slave. I don't hold myself responsible for that like I used to, but I do still have that sense that I'm paying off some kind of debt. So if you go to the beginning of my videos, you'll find that most of what I made in the beginning was videos about how to deprogram from mind control, using my knowledge of programming. I recognize that not every survivor is in this position, of course. So for those who are considering speaking out, I recognize that this may not be your focus. This was just my focus based on my specific life experience. One of the things I struggled with a lot was deciding whether or not to try to reach the general public. I grew up in the elite. I'm what people call a bloodliner. I was trained to hate and to fear the general public. I was taught that those outside of the elite are worthless on a spiritual level and only valuable for what they can give as part of a workforce. I was taught that the vast majority of people are intellectually inferior to me, genetically inferior to me, and definitely do not deserve to be educated about the stuff that I grew up in. And I now know that for the elite, it's a lot less about deserve and a lot more about what's safe for them. They don't want people to know what's going on because that could disrupt their operations. But I was taught that it was all about shame, it was all about this elitism, and I was taught to be very, very afraid of the masses wanting to come after me and my family for the crimes that my family has committed. All of this left me feeling very, very wary of approaching the public. All this training made it very difficult for me to even consider the possibility that I could talk about what I went through in a way that was designed to help the masses understand. At first, I felt like most survivors devote too much energy, actually, to educating the masses when they get free from mind control and other forms of exploitation, and that they really should spend more time trying to help each other. And so that was part of it for me too, is I wanted to specifically focus on helping survivors because I felt like too much attention was given to educating the masses, and part of me honestly wondered whether or not it was worth it. I felt like there was so much information out there already. I wasn't sure what I really could contribute. I wasn't sure what was safe for me to contribute, and I just felt like there might not be any point. I was also very afraid of backlash, of abuse that I would receive from ignorant people who didn't understand. So, all that said, I started out making videos for survivors and put in the description of my channel that this was for survivors. I think the description of my channel still says something to that effect, but it's a little bit less direct, the intention behind it. I've since opened up my channel a lot to helping people in the public. I honestly cannot say exactly what prompted me to do this, to start speaking out more to the public. I think that a lot of it had to do with the little bit of interest I did receive from quote-unquote outsiders, and just even the littlest bit of compassion that I received from people outside the survivor community, I think went a long way in opening me up to the possibility that I really did have something to offer. It also really helped me to just start speaking out and just start making videos on my experiences and get more comfortable talking. Because like I said, a lot of it was just about fear. One of the things I had to deeply consider also in speaking out, this is one of the main things, was, do I want to name names of my abusers? I had already gone to the police and named some names. And I've spoken about that on this channel before in some testimonies. This was a terrible experience. I was met with a lot of abuse. It did not work out. I felt extremely shut down. And sorry for the sound of the car horn going off. The car alarm, I mean. Can't control that. So this was a big decision for me to make. I knew that if I publicly spoke out, naming names of my abusers, I could be liable to show up in court for that. And I had already made the decision, after having gone to the police and been shut down, that I wasn't going to pursue a legal case. So if I was not going to pursue a legal case, then there was no value in me saying my parents' names and the names of various other perpetrators. It was not going to lead to more good than harm. And I also, of course, had to think about the kind of backlash that I would face if I did so, even if it was outside of the courts. And I knew that this was not something that I could emotionally handle. And I knew that it would only take away from my ability to help others. So I had to decide to not name the names and to focus on sharing personal testimony, speaking to those who would intuitively grasp that what I was saying was true. I had to accept the fact that I was not going to be able to prove to people who did not want to believe this stuff happens in the first place. and I had to just focus on speaking to people who, like I said, were going to intuitively accept what I was saying as the truth. Because I know what I went through, and I know that I'm speaking the truth. And I know that other people can pick up on that too. So I had to let go of the idea, gosh, a different car alarm, or horn, or whatever. I had to let go of the idea that I could convince people who didn't want to believe in this stuff that it was real, as I was not going to name names and I had no physical proof to offer. This is painful for me to accept, but once I did so, it freed me up to be a lot more helpful. Another thing I had to ask myself was, did I want to offer my services to survivors to give peer support via email? I decided that, yes, I wanted to do this, and that I could safely do this as long as I did so for free, and as long as I made it extremely clear that I am not a therapist, and that I do not have professional training in the normal sense of the term. I just have some experience deprogramming and some knowledge of mind control from having been trained as a deprogrammer. I'm sorry, I meant to say programmer myself. But honestly, I secretly feel like my training to program others was really my training to deprogram others. My abusers just didn't know it. So, that being said, I considered all this stuff, and I went ahead and I made my channel. I had to choose profile picture and a cover photo, as I wanted those things. They're not mandatory, but I wanted those things that I felt could be healing for people, but not too triggering. For a while, I actually had a picture of my face, and it was a rather triggering picture, and I apologize to anybody who was activated by that. At first, I honestly didn't do the best job with this, but I ended up choosing the picture I have now, which is of a plant growing through the cracks of concrete. That, to me, is very symbolic of the healing journey I'm on. I thought about doing a lotus in mud, but thought that that would be too triggering, so I went ahead with that one instead. It represents the same general idea. For a while, I didn't have a cover photo either, but I went ahead and I got a photo of cherry blossoms that I didn't think would be too triggering for other people. I know that anything can be a trigger, and that actually was a trigger for me, but I didn't feel like it was specific enough to REMC that it would be too activating for others. It seemed neutral enough, and I went ahead and I picked one where the colors were soft so that they weren't too loud, too close to the color red. The reason I specifically went with cherry blossoms was because cherry blossom, and I know this might trigger people, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. I have not said this on this channel yet. That was my main child pornography name. They called me that, and they sold me as basically as a brand label as a child for many years. Many child sex abusers got to watch me grow up and watch these video series and get these images of me and go to these shows of me under the name of Cherry Blossom. And it's been a big part of my healing to reclaim my love for that symbol, for those flowers, and it's kind of my way of saying fuck you to my abusers. I'm speaking out with a picture of cherry blossoms to say that I remember, and to say that I'm reclaiming the beauty inside me that was that child, as I was never anything but beautiful like those flowers, and I was never what they tried to defile me into being. Okay, this video is about 20 minutes long now, and I don't want to go on too much longer on any other tangents because I'm afraid that this will time out. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, but I'm going to make a part 2, as I have a lot more things to say about this, and one of the main things I want to talk about is dealing with online targeting, attacks from the perpetrator network, as well as dealing with alt-right trolls, all sorts of terrible shit that I've had to go through. And I have stuff to say about moderating my channel, my process of handling comments, and I definitely have stuff to say about what it's been like to get a sudden influx of attention in the last couple months and to go from having 100 subscribers to over 10,000. Okay, I'm going to end this here. I hope this is helpful to others. I haven't rambled too much, and I hope that you all will stick with me for part 2 if you're able, if it's helpful to you. And I definitely encourage people to reach out in the comments, and I want to open up a dialogue because I think that talking about how to speak out in some ways is just as important as speaking out itself. Thank you.